I'm 40 years of age, male, and a product of the 1970s. At an early age, my dad left me and my mom, so I always felt like I had to be strong for her because she was always crying on my shoulder about how our father left us and deserted us, and I was only 4 or 5. Anyways, Mom met a new guy fresh out of the Marine Corps. They got married soon after. We moved to a place called Del Camino, a trailer park just east of Longmont, Colorado, next to Highway I-25. We lived in a single-wide green trailer on Grove Street. My room was at the far north part of the trailer. My parents' room was at the other end, and in between was the kitchen and living room. I was about 8 years old when one night while in bed, I heard someone calling my name. It was soft and comforting. I walked down the hall trying to figure out where the voice was coming from, and it sounded like it was coming from outside. So I unlocked the door, opened the screen door, and walked out onto our big red patio that my stepfather had built. When I got to the edge of the patio, I looked over and saw that there was nothing there. And I mean nothing. There was no ground. There were no cars. There weren't even any other trailers there. It was just the patio and me. I remember freaking out, crying out loud, and then all of a sudden, something grabbed me. When it did, I felt an extreme pain radiating throughout my entire body. Suddenly I came to and I realized that I was outside on the patio naked as my stepfather was spanking the hell out of me for going outside at 2 o'clock in the morning. It was pretty weird, but not as weird as what happened the next night. After dinner and a movie, we watched Superman with Christopher Reeves, and then I went to bed. Instead of dreaming, I was Superman flying around or something like that. This is how it went. A voice, soft, comforting, calling my name. This time coming from my window. My window faced the street. I had no curtain, so it was always lit up in my room a little from the orange glowing streetlights. But when I opened my eyes to see who was calling me, I noticed the room was really bright orange. I sat up in my bed, which was directly across from the window, and through the window was what looked like an orange glowing egg, about 10 feet in diameter, floating above Grove Street, about 10 feet off the ground. I couldn't figure out what it was. I didn't even think of a spaceship or aliens at the time. I just watched it hover. Then it got even brighter like the sun. I felt heat on my exposed skin. I got really scared at that point, but I couldn't move. I felt frozen, sitting up in the bed facing the object in the window. Then I felt a tingling sensation all over me. I looked down at my chest and noticed small ant-like insects, but they were metallic, about the size of ants, but they looked more like tiny rectangles. They were crawling all over me, my legs, face, chest, and arms. I couldn't move, I was so terrified. Then the robot ants just disappeared into thin air all at the same time that the light dimmed, and I could move again. But for some reason, I laid back down and pulled the covers over my head. The voice was no longer there, but I felt a presence in the room with me. I was petrified. I began to think that I've got to get into my mom's room quick. But I was so afraid of whatever was in the room with me that I was having a really hard time getting the courage to do it. Finally, I gathered enough guts to throw the covers off, jump up to my feet. I looked out the window. There were 4 beings, just like these so-called grays I hear about, in the middle of the street. They all turned and looked at me at the same time, and in one split second, one of them was at my window, staring at me. Its movement was so fast that I couldn't even see it move from the street to the window. I freaked out and screamed and started to turn and run when I heard a crash in my closet. At that point, I wasn't sticking around for the next surprise. I hightailed it down through the hall, through the kitchen, jumping over the couch and straight into my mom and stepdad's room. He wasn't too happy, but Mom knew I was really upset, so she gave me a blanket and pillow and I lay down on the floor next to their waterbed. I was feeling calmer and started to fall asleep, then I heard something in the room. I screamed for my mom, but nobody woke up. I said it louder and neither one of them woke up. I heard shuffling in the room and then a bang against the waterbed. I looked down towards the foot of the bed and suddenly a big ugly insect-like head popped out. I blacked out, and when I woke up it was the next morning. I was still really terrified by what I had seen, but I didn't tell anybody. I've had many other experiences. This was just the first one. I've had an intense phobia of alien images since an early age of 5, the first time I saw E.T. I can look at pictures of the Alien franchise xenomorphs no problem, but the more gray-like and spindly they are, I physically feel just sick looking at them. I used to have sleeping problems, with 2 reoccurring nightmares of seeing a UFO in the sky outside of my room at my parents' house. I'd then rush downstairs to check the conservatory is locked, and it isn't. When I go to grab the handle and lock it, I see a very long-fingered gray hand grasp at the handle. I always wake up then. The second dream was literally me just being in a room with a 6-7 foot tall gray, and a ridiculously long-limbed spindly gray that takes up almost the whole room. It was impossible to look away from it, no matter how hard I tried. I took sleep therapy and eventually learned a few little life-saving lucid dream hacks so I could change the dream or wake myself up as soon as I noticed the reoccurring features beginning to manifest. When I came to tell my parents about the sleep problems, my mom revealed that she'd seen something similar. She swears up and down that a week after my birth, she checked on me every hour during the night to see if I was still alive because I was born premature. One night I had been particularly bad and she came in and swears up and down that she saw a wingless angel who took up the whole room, standing over my bed and bent doubled over. She stared at its face and remembers nothing else but an androgynous face she can't even draw. She said without moving its lips, somehow it told her everything was fine and she could go back to sleep. She did, and she thought it was an angel back then, but now she's not so sure. For a while, none of the nightmares bothered me, but in 2013 that changed. It was November, and I wasn't at my family home anymore. I was staying at my student flat. I woke up from a nightmare in which aliens were trying to get into the house. I was living with 5 other people. The first thing I did was check my door. I had a safety lock on it all the time, especially when I slept. It hadn't moved. It was about 6 a.m. and I didn't have class until 12, so I listened to my iPod until I could go to sleep again. When I woke up from my actual alarm at 9, I went to open my curtains, and I found a handprint. Only it couldn't have been human. Fingers were long, 3 or 4 times the length of a human. I remembered staring at it for a good few minutes, feeling sick. I don't even have long nails and never will because I'm gross and bite them. The shape, it was so distinct and it really weirded me out. I woke up the 3 other housemates still at home, and they honestly did not know what to make of it. I think one girl figured out immediately why I had turned down the downstairs patio door bedroom when we'd been assigned rooms. Way too many conservatory flashbacks there. I wonder if anyone else has ever experienced anything like this before. To this day, everyone kind of just brushes it off with, wow, that's bizarre. But, it honestly scares me. The idea that something could have been in my locked room, next to me, and done that. And also wondering if it has anything to do with the thing my mother saw, or whether she was maybe just sleep deprived. I have no idea why an alien would fly that amount of distance to come leave a weird shape on my window, but maybe I'd rather not know. It first began when I was 7 years old. One summer night I was trying to sleep, and I thought we were having an earthquake. I sensed a presence outside of my window and a strong, shaking, rolling sensation as if we were having an earthquake. It felt like it lasted for a minute or so. The next thing I know, it's morning and I'm lying in my bed. First thing I asked my parents about is if they felt the earthquake last night. They said no, and I thought that was odd. I went for a swim in our pool and experienced some pain in my genitals. I'm not going to go into all the details, but I had small incisions and white things under my skin which I was able to remove. It was painful, especially in the shower or the pool. I was young at the time and thought maybe this is what a wet dream was. So I told my friends on the way to school that I had a wet dream. When I explained the details, they said that isn't a wet dream. As time went on, I started to think I may have been abducted by aliens. Years went by, and I always remembered that experience and wondered about it. Since then, every so often, at least 10 times now, I've woken up with strange and unexplainable cuts on my skin. They are straight lines 2 to 5 inches long, red and lightly scabbed, but they always heal quickly. They usually occur in places that I can't even reach, like on my back. Once I woke up covered with 30 plus scratches. My girlfriend at the time noticed them and asked about them, but I didn't have an explanation. She was sleeping in the same bed with me when it happened that night. I've woken up with these scratches off and on over the years. Sometimes it seems like years go by and then just when I think things will get normal again, I wake up to a new set of them. I am currently married. A couple of months ago, my wife and I were sleeping. My wife woke me up in the early morning and was disoriented. She said she went to bed with her clothes on, but now she was naked and couldn't find her clothes. She said she also heard weird noises outside our window and had very strange dreams. I woke up with the weird scratches on my skin that morning as well. I've never shared with her my experiences or beliefs, and I don't plan to. I have no memories of ever seeing an alien. But logically, that's the best theory I can come up with. I have not yet undergone hypnosis to try to recover memories, and I don't really think I want to. I would rather this never happened to me, and it's somewhat scary to think about. Overall, my health seems fine, and if they wanted to harm me, they easily could, but they seem not to. I have no real interest in going to any UFO conventions or anything. They seem mostly full of crackpots, and also, once you associate with that group, it has a negative stigma, and people think you're crazy. Most of the information I have found online has been interesting, but I am skeptical as there are a lot of weirdos out there, so I take everything with a grain of salt. I hope that one day this will all make sense, and I'm now in my 30s. I'm currently running a camera in our bedroom when we sleep. I'm not really expecting it to work if this ever happens again. but I figured it can't hurt.